Hey, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Extra Feature. And today I have a fabulous short. Yes, a short. You need to pay attention, people. But I have the fabulous writer, director, Robin Rippleman, and his film Spellbound. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start at the beginning. I mean, I think this should have been longer.
Oh wow, yeah, yeah. It's funny you say that because I get that quite a lot from people about the short, that they would be excited to see a feature version of this.
I think
Um,
I think you could have gone so many more directions with this, even 10 more minutes.
yeah,
So
yeah. It's encouraging on one hand, but on the other hand, I think it's quite tricky to figure out what the feature version might entail. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe I will develop it further, but yeah, we'll see.
So you always had it planned for a short, like this small. Was there ever a longer version?
There was never a longer version. It was always intended as a short, because when I started working on it, I was still a film student, and features weren't really on my mind yet, like at all. I figured I have to prove myself with shorts first, before even thinking about tackling features. So yeah, it was always a short.
So when you were developing your short, did you have the people in mind you were going to shoot for the short? Did you have to go find them?
For the main character, James, I didn't really have anyone in mind yet when I wrote it. But for the sort of supporting role, I already had the actress in mind because we had worked together before. Um, and I knew she'd be up for it. And for the main character, we just had a casting session. And yeah, Nicholas really stood out with what he put into the role as well. And yeah, so we cast him. Yeah.
So when you were thinking about this and shooting it, did you have I mean, being a film student coming right off that, and this is, I presume, your first project outside of school?
Um, well, yeah, it's kind of a strange one because while I did started back in 2014 when I was still a film student, it kind of it was on and off until about 2022 when it was released for the first time. And so in between starting it and finishing it, I'd done another short film project, because it was a bit overly ambitious because I wanted to have this surreal dream sequence. And at the time, most people kind of tried to talk me out of it. But I was like, yeah, well, I want to give this a shot. And the original plan was to work with other students and kind of maybe have a rotation because you can't really ask a student to commit for that long to one project. But that, yeah, wasn't really working. And the location for the final scene fell through a couple of times as well, like 2 days before the shoot.
Ouch.
Um, yeah, yeah, it was a location they were at this area in London where there was loads of like corporate high rises, and they're kind of notoriously flaky when it comes to filming permits. And I think especially with horror, I think when you mention that it's a horror project, a lot of people kind of get the wrong idea and think you're going to show up and pour buckets of blood everywhere. And so I ended up changing the setting of the final scene, and then we finally got to shoot it. But in between, then I got work in Switzerland, and then I moved back to Switzerland. and I tried to keep going on the project from there, but that quickly petered out because there was so much else going on. And then finally in 2019, I think it was, we went back to London to shoot the final scene. Snuck in there just before the pandemic hit. And then it was post-production from there until about 2020. Yeah, so it was over a massive stretch of time, and it was in production hell kind of for a couple of years, and yeah.
Okay, I'll be nice now. I'll stop asking you hard questions, and we're going to go into some nice, easy ones for you. So at the beginning in your first opening shot, is he in an apartment or a house? I couldn't quite decide. And is that house the same house from the end, if it is a house?
No, it is a house, but it's like a flat within a house. In England, there's lots of like old, like Victorian, former like warehouses that have been converted to like multiple flats. So that was in one location, and then the house at the end is in another location. Funnily enough, it was actually a house I was a lodger in at the time, so sometimes you don't have to look that far to find location. So yeah, those are two different locations.
So when you were serving your main character dinner, was the frozen dinner entree an option, or you always had decided what frozen dinner was going to be served?
Um, I think it was always decided that it was sort of going to be this spaghetti bolognese because it just had that kind of nasty look to it, and so yeah, the production designer went and bought some and opened them, put the feather in, and then actually resealed them, but we didn't end up using the one continuous take in the final project, but yeah.
So how was that? Did you try then different bonnets to see how the feather looked inside, or did you pick the first
No, it was like 2 or 3 takes, if I remember correctly, because on one of the takes, the feather that he pulled out was barely recognizable as a feather anymore. So we had to do a couple of attempts. Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to ask, how many feathers did you have on set to do this?
Oh, a whole bunch, because the feathers are kind of a reoccurring theme throughout the short. So I think the production designer just had like a bag full of different feathers with her that we used for different occasions, and yeah, had some for backup as well.
Say, when you're shooting this scene, I find you play with your lighting a lot. You're definitely not using natural light. It's very artificial, and you have it very
Yeah.
focused at time, almost like an arc, I guess I would say. Like it's very much like this. So was that your plan, or did you have a different plan in mind? It didn't come to fruition.
No, that was the plan. We'd always kind of wanted to have um, a different color spectrum for each character as well. And I was a bit worried whether it was all going to come together in the end because they're so different. But I think it worked out quite well. And yeah, we just together with the production designer, we'd also have like a color scheme for the clothes and the set dressing to tie it all together.
Okay. I want to, because you cut from there, then I put the look of the leading lady. Since you want to bring up color, let's go right to there. Makeup, red nails, eyeshadow, ring. That's all added by you, I would say, as your look, or is that somebody else's look?
No, that's all added because she is a femme fatale type character, and we were also looking for a way to make her recognizable as the figure in the dream sequence. And so we decided, well, if we have really distinct kind of nail polish and lipstick, and also the bracelet and things like that, to tie those two together.
Okay. The poster on the wall, I presume that was added also?
Yes, that's yeah, I actually had a very specific art print in mind. I think that's of I think it's a rendition of like Edgar Allan Poe in an opium den or something like
Oh,
that.
so I
And
could not figure out what it was, but okay.
yeah, yeah, and that specific print in mind, and we'd ordered it, but it didn't arrive in time for the shoot. So the Juliana, the production designer, she just decided, well, I'll basically make an adaptation kind of it, and she put together that print that ended up in the film itself by herself over like an evening before the shoot. So yeah, that was amazing.
Well, that's well. Okay. Then I would say we go into some CGI effects at this point. How was working with that? Because you said you obviously said it was gonna be a lot of work for you.
Yes, it was definitely a bit overambitious, maybe. Like I would definitely say if you're going to go for that type of thing, make sure that you have a specific plan on how you're going to achieve it. Because obviously my plan that I had didn't really work out in the end, and I was able to apply for some funding and actually get some funding, which was great, and that allowed me to got in touch with a Zurich-based VFX artist. He at that point he'd done mostly commercial stuff and like visualizations for architects and that type of thing, and he gave me a big cultural discount as well. I think otherwise it wouldn't have been possible. And yeah, it's tricky to not have the actual VFX team that ends up working on it on the shoot, because obviously because there was such a large time gap in between. Normally they would make sure that you shoot it in a way that makes it as easy and accommodating for them as possible. But when you don't have that, all these little problems kind of start showing up that can make things a bit more complicated than they need to be. But yeah, I think yeah, he was great at finding solutions for yeah, a lot of them. Like we didn't have there was like because it was all shot on Steadicam, there was one moment where the tracking markers we had in the back, one just went out of frame and the next one hadn't quite come into frame yet. So he
Uh-oh.
had like a stretch with no tracking. And yeah, kind of had to manually fiddle around with it. And if we'd had him there on the day, he would have said, well, make sure there's a few more tracking markers and stuff like that. So if you can try to get, I think, VFX people involved as early as possible. But yeah, other than that, yeah, it was great. I put together a little mood board with references to that obsidian look that I wanted for that dreamscape. And yeah, it was really great working with him. And yeah, I'm really happy with how the dream sequence turned out.
So I don't want to leave out your music. It is here. It's very subtle, but does show up here and there. You don't really have long periods of music. So how was adding music to it?
Yes, I worked with a London-based cellist. She's a professional musician, Jo Quayle, and I'd been to a concert of hers a couple of years before, and I figured that the occult setting would really lend itself to cello, and so I approached her and said, "Well, I have a short here that needs scoring. Would you be interested?" And she was up for it. And it's tricky with a short to like you can't really do things like giving a character a theme or things like that because there's just not enough time to develop that sort of thing. Um, yeah, so we just decided on kind of representing the atmosphere, and yeah, it was great working with her as well.
I just want to go back to the cello music. You don't really hear that normally in horror shows. Like I don't. I'm watching hundreds and hundreds of shorts a year. I don't hear. So why did the cello speak to you more than anything else?
I think it might be because one of the inspirations for the dream sequence was Under the Skin
Okay.
by Jonathan Glazer, I think it
You're
is.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That also has these void-like scenes, and it has that amazing piece of music where I don't know if it's a cello. I think it might be a violin, but there's like one chord, and they play it at different speeds. And I think that's why maybe I sort of had string instruments on my mind for this. It was also used as temp music actually for the dream sequence, which is always a bit tricky because editors always want you to put in temp music because it helps them with the timing. But composers often don't like it because by the time editing is done, often the director will want the temp music essentially. So I just sort of decided I'm I'm just going to watch it once with the music, and then I want like exports without the music. Otherwise, the same thing might happen.
Was your plan always to have, I wrote down the film was always dark, except when the lady's doing her thing. Was that your plan?
Yes. Yeah, when I originally wrote it, the ritual scenes weren't in the script yet. It was just
Oh,
yeah. That was like the 2014, 2015 version of the script. And the upside of it taking this long to finish and being in production hell was that I got some time away from it and was able to look at it again with kind of fresh eyes. And I realized that the pacing and the change of scenes wasn't really working because you'd go from him going to bed at night, going straight back to him kind of coming home, going to bed. So it wasn't quite clear that it was different days. And so I think that was also part of the reason I wrote in the like ritual scenes to help break it up a bit and improve the pacing. And I think the short is much better for it. I think if shooting the original script had gone smoothly, I think it would have been a much worse short film, ironically.
later on we have headphones. They're red. Does that tie into the red from earlier on in the film?
No, that is a pure coincidence.
Okay. See, you didn't think I was watching, did you? Now we do get to the end of the film, and this is my only minor complaint. I wanted a scene. We have a discussion. I don't want to ruin anything. I kind of wanted to see that discussion earlier, but you can't give it to me or something later that I really wanted. This is what I wanted the next 5 to 10 minutes. I wanted what's going to happen next. This is the point that I got. I wouldn't
Mm,
say frustrated with you to the point that I was anxious for more at this point. Now, is
yeah.
that the where you were talking about people ask you for more? Because you kind of just set us up to like to be continued.
Yes, I think that's what most people say about it, that they would like to see this idea further explored, like what happens next. And yeah, I don't know. It's tricky. I sometimes find it tricky to decide what short film ideas have features in them, and I think it could definitely be worth exploring to see where things go from there and add on to that. I think I just might have to sit down and play around with it and see what happens.
I think you could. I
Yeah,
think if you gave yourself another just personally. 15 to 20 minutes, I think would be perfect. And make it like half an
Yeah.
hour, and I think that's what me and the audience are definitely looking for.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I've covered your film fairly well. I'm going to move on to fun questions, unless I missed something you wanted to discuss.
No, I think you were very thorough.
Oh, awesome. Excellent. First time on the show, your favorite film, please?
Oh, that is a really tricky question.
I know, that's why I
I
asked it.
think, yeah, one of my favorites, I'd say, is definitely The Babadook.
Oh, okay.
More
Something
recently,
recent.
yeah, really enjoyed it.
You know,
Yeah,
it's funny. I would say your film could be the Babadook. Yeah, yeah, I can totally see that from your film now. And the Babadook. That makes sense.
yeah,
I'll give it to you. One film you always recommend to people.
yeah. I don't get tired of recommending Cat People
Oh, way
to
back.
others. The black and white
Yeah.
version. I feel it's a bit underseen, maybe, and it's such a gorgeous movie, and it has that really nice kind of old school horror vibe to it.
On your last question, favorite on-set meal.
Sorry, what's that?
Your favorite on-set meal.
On set?
Yeah, when you're eating, you have meals,
Oh,
catering.
on set meal. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Um, it's just like a salad because when I have anything else, like if I had a pizza, I'd be so tired and slow that I
Fair enough.
probably wouldn't make it through the rest of the shoot day. So I usually opt for a light meal. Yeah.
So, if people would love to see your stuff, please tell everybody where they can find your work.
A lot of my stuff is on my Vimeo channel. Yeah, that's just my name, Robin Rittman, on Vimeo. And Spellbound has screenings coming up at the DC Independent Film Festival on the 23rd of February and at the Terrifying Thai Film Festival in early March, 9th or 10th. They haven't finalized the schedule yet.
Thank you for your time and have a great day.
Thanks so much for having me.